I always look at Return of Castle Wolfenstein as one of the last true old school shooters, and it's really one of the last titles from what we PC elitists refer to as the golden age of gaming. It's a game that just kind of mixes together a bunch of different genres and themes and then just runs with it for 8 or so hours until the whole campaign comes to an end. It was released at a time when war games were really coming into their own as a genre, and it successfully updated an old classic and brought it into a new age. It's no secret that the game is based off Wolfenstein 3D, which was one of the first games I played as a kid, and one that got me hooked on gaming in general. The first level even starts exactly the same way Wolfenstein 3D did, with you breaking out of your cell with nothing but a pistol. They did a really good job of bringing back the combination of shooting Nazis and finding treasure, and giving it a technological facelift. But whereas Wolf 3D was a fairly basic corridor shooter, what you've got with Return of Castle Wolfenstein is something that takes a whole slew of gameplay styles and design elements and mashes them all together. Obviously at heart it's a military-based shooter, but then there's elements of horror, sci-fi,
Dispatch the remaining security force immediately.
And if the American gets past the security force?
and even a little bit of stealth. And it pulls it all off pretty well. What you end up with is an experience that never focuses on just one motif. The paradigm of the game shifts almost level to level to keep things feeling fresh. For instance, one minute you're storming through a German village, gunning Nazis from a machine gun nest. Then in the next you're crawling through an ancient crypt, battling shield and axe-wielding zombies and fire-spewing demons, collecting treasure like Indiana Jones and avoiding booby traps. I can also remember playing this Crypts demo back in 2000 on my dad's computer and literally shitting bricks at this level. It came out of nowhere, and it's that kind of departure from formula that really keeps things interesting and means you never truly fall into repetition.
What? The ladder! It's destroyed!
The visuals obviously played a big part in this. Technologically speaking, the Quake 3 engine kind of looks like shit today, but back then this was pretty remarkable. The variety in the environments is still impressive even by today's standards. You literally won't find yourself in the same looking area twice. Every single level has its own unique look and feel, and that's saying something. Even the music has a distinct feel to whatever it may be accompanying. Creepy, ominous tunes play when you're skulking through catacombs, whereas up-tempo, militaristic music can be heard when you're storming through the various Nazi bases. There's a distinct cinematic flair to the soundtrack that really makes it quite memorable. Unfortunately, the same can't be said about the story.
Come in.
Most of the story was delivered in cutscene form, which was thankfully skippable and utterly pointless for the most part, as the objectives and progression of the storyline was always given to you in the loading screens.
My apologies, Herr Oberfuhrer, but the weapons loadout on the new torpedoes is taking more time than originally anticipated.
It wasn't amazing by any means, but it was handled well enough and you always knew what you were supposed to be doing.
Jawohl.
It also mixed old school run and gunning with a more realistic approach to bullet ballistics and recoil, which is kind of an odd mix, but somehow it just kind of works within the setting. As a wise man once said, fire in short, controlled bursts, and that works against the enemies 99% of the time. And speaking of enemies, there was an absolute shitload of enemy types in this game, from the standard grunts,
I hope we get some new blankets soon.
to the elite paratroopers, to the minigun-toting soldiers, even through to mutants and zombies. Oh, and I can't forget the fetish Nazi chicks decked out in skin-tight leather jumpsuits.
Jawohl!
Yeah, that kind of stirred up some strange feelings inside when I first encountered them as a 15-year-old kid. Return of Castle Wolfenstein is still an old-school shooter at heart. From the lightning speed at which you can dash around maps to the inclusion of medkits and armor pickups. After all, it's based on one of the most fundamental shooting games ever made. You get to carry a literal arsenal of weapons to kill shit with, and every weapon has its advantages and disadvantages. I was particularly fond of the paratrooper rifle and the venom gun. The latter just kind of turns everything into minced meat. God damn. And like a lot of those older games, it can be unabashedly difficult. This game doesn't fuck around. There's guys with flamethrowers and rocket launchers that can insta-kill you if you're not paying attention. Even the standard soldiers can tear you a new one. Some of the later levels in this game are just ridiculous. Enemies have pinpoint accuracy, headshots seem much less effective, and there's also a strange glitch where they get stuck in this sort of staggering animation for a few seconds, during which they don't take any damage, which just means you're wasting bullets. I think that's more of just a limitation on the technology though, and in the end it's not particularly game-breaking. And it's that type of gameplay that truly encapsulates the PC's quick save system, something that is almost absent in modern shooters. You will die, a lot, but that's how we rolled back then. We got our asses handed to us time and time again, but we just kept pressing that F5 button and hoping for the best. I'd like to think that Return to Castle Wolfenstein is up there with Doom and Half-Life as some of the genre's most defining games, though I can see how it might be kind of hard for younger gamers to get into it and appreciate it for what it truly is. In 2009, the same development team released a sequel simply called Wolfenstein. It had the same lead character, albeit with a different look, and for the most part it did everything as well as the previous title, despite obviously trying to fit in with the rest of the modern shooters. Though my main problem with it was just the way it handled the introduction of the paranormal elements. In Return to Castle Wolfenstein, you really felt like you were coming across all of this stuff at the same time BJ did. You learn about things as you progress through the world and completed missions, but in Wolfenstein it just kind of gets thrusted upon you from the get-go. In the first mission there's things going awry and elements of the paranormal already. All the tension and discovery is lost. It's not a bad game though, I just wish they had worked on the pacing a bit better. Looking back on Return to Castle Wolfenstein though, I wish the difficulty was a bit more balanced. The stealth system is pretty buggy sometimes, and I'm not exactly fond of the cheapness of some of the gunfights, but considering both of these games are absolutely dirt cheap, there's really no reason not to play them if you've got any interest in the FPS genre at all.
A prison, then.
Wolf 3D kind of shows its age as a maze-crawling, key-collecting shooter, but the other two titles are really interesting, if not to simply see how one of the first FPS games of all time has evolved over the years to save the ever-changing gaming industry. So grab that goddamn flamethrower and let's go kill some Nazis.